So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiance Okay. I'm Mr. O, and today, Ms. H and I will be discussing the premiere of Season 6 of Happily Ever After. In this episode, we get reintroduced to a bunch of people we already know pretty well. Angela is getting ready for her weight loss surgery. Andrei wants to ask Chuck for a loan. Kalani and Asuelu are house shopping. Mike and Natalie are ring shopping. And Brandon and Julia get off the farm and go to Vegas. As always, we'll end with our class dunces, students of the week, and life lessons. We're also covering Before the 90 Days Season 1 on this channel. This week we're covering episodes 11 and 12. And next week we'll cover episode 13 and the tell-all. You can watch along with us on Hulu or Discovery+. Okay, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy.
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, just getting through. We got a new season, though, so that's something to look forward to.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where it seems really great at the beginning, and then about a couple episodes in, you're like, oh, yeah, I remember how terrible you are.
Right. I do prefer getting at least some new people that I'm like, you know, it takes me a good chunk of a season to realize how much I don't like them.
Right. And you're kind of like, oh, well, it's like refreshing because you're like, oh, you've had a break. You've had some space and distance from these people.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, not so much. So let's go ahead and start with the ones that we didn't have any space or distance from, or one of the ones. I guess it was the only one this episode, wasn't it?
No, Mike and Natalie.
Oh, Mike and Natalie too. That's right. Well, Brandon and Julia is what I'm starting with.
Yes.
So we see Brandon, who, a reminder, is 27, and his wife Julia, who's 26, who live in their, they live on his parents' farm in Dinwiddie, Virginia. But right now, it's time to get away from the farm. But only for a vacation. They did a bunch of fake out things at the beginning of every scene. They're not moving out permanently, but they are headed to Vegas. We recap their whole meeting and their relationship, which fills in actually a lot of new details about how Julia had met one of Brandon's friends in Korea, and so he went to Korea, and I don't feel like Korea was mentioned before at all.
No, what's up with that?
Yeah, and there was a whole thing about a blue rose, and I don't know. But anyway, we do afterward learn that things financially right now are looking up. Brandon has a new job that has less hours and makes more money. And so while he's in between jobs, they're going to Vegas to celebrate. They say goodbye to Brandon's parents, Betty and Ron, who warned them not to get sucked into a party town, because that's what Vegas is. It's a party town. It seems like they're making a really big deal out of like a weekend trip to Vegas, but okay.
Yeah.
Ron expresses his concern that Brandon is becoming more submissive to Julia's whims. And Betty thinks that, it must have been Julia's idea to go to Vegas. Because Brandon is just basically, without saying it, whipped. Julia is excited for the gambling, the fun time, and of course, alone time with Brandon. She hopes that this trip will inspire Brandon to want to move to a big city. Julia is excited to finally see a big city in the U.S., especially one that Brandon hasn't been to either. So they go to the same off-strip resort that all the 90-day couples go to.
Yeah.
And Julia double checks to make sure that they're in the same room and Betty didn't mess anything up and separate them. But that night, Julia puts on some big glasses and they hit the town. Julia loves the way Vegas feels so far and is already, I thought she was going to hint at it, but then she just said it out loud, suggests that they should move to Vegas and live there. Brandon, who we stress never takes anything seriously.
Right.
Makes a super dry, sarcastic joke about well, actually, I already called ahead and we're looking at a house tomorrow. Just kidding. No, we're not doing that.
Oh, he's the
Julia
worst.
Julia doesn't really appreciate it any more than either of us did. He just says that, they're just in casino land and none of this is real life. He doesn't want to have to get a new license for work and all that kind of stuff. But Julia wants more options that the big city offers. At the end of the day, she really just doesn't want to live on the farm anymore. Julia wants to live somewhere where she's in charge, not Betty. And then he gets really snippy and says well, fine then, I guess we'll just live in a cardboard box around the corner. Unless you have some hidden income. Anyway, she's really put off by his reluctance to move, especially since she already moved so far away from him. All right, so I don't know. This one, the one that got me, are these two people aware that there is a vast array of differences between living on a farm in rural Virginia and living in downtown Las Vegas?
Yeah, I know, right? I have to say that I kind of agreed. Neither of them were really entirely wrong. I think that Brandon, by saying, this is casino land, nothing's real here, like, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I do think that Vegas does have some shady sides to it that maybe aren't as appealing. We've seen it. How many of our Love After Lockup couples live in Vegas or the Vegas area, right? We definitely see kind of a more seedy, shady side of Vegas. And I think the kind of people that live there, are kind of into more of that Vegas lifestyle, the partying, the gambling, and I actually do have quite a few friends that live out in Vegas, and they're not really into the partying and the gambling, but, it's really just, I don't know, you're very it's like a lot of space if you're living off Strip, right? And who lives on Strip?
Who lives on the Strip? And that's the thing about Vegas is, like, it is 100%. It's literally like a Disneyland. It's Disney World, right? It's like yes, there's things on the Strip and there's things, but they're all hotels. Nobody's there permanently, right? Everybody lives off. So I get what he's saying when he says it's not the real world, because it is a bit like a grown-up Disney World. Like,
and you're not living on the Strip, so that's and if you're off Strip, it's basically like you're in a desert. You're like basically
you're in literally
desert.
a desert.
So, you're definitely a trade-off from the farm. Like, to me, if I was to pick farm or desert, I don't know. Depends on how rural this farm is. But I think I would go farm.
Okay. They're definitely overselling the ruralness of this farm. Because this is not my neck of the woods, but I've driven through Dinwiddie a lot of times, right? Because when you drive, I drove, between North Carolina and DC a lot. And you drive through there, it's like 30 minutes from Richmond. It's not like nowhere ever, right? Yeah. And Richmond is a surprisingly big city. And so it's weird to me that it's like, that's one. So your options are farm in Dinwiddie or like Vegas. And I was like, can't they like move to Richmond? Because I also get him, hey, I need to be in Virginia. I have my license in Virginia. My parents are nearby. So like, it seems like that would be like the step up. It doesn't have to be, let's move across the literal damn country, instead of just like, well, let's go to a bigger place in Virginia. So we're not on a farm.
Right. So one thing that I also feel like Ron and Betty were overly concerned about was how crazy Vegas was going to be. Because let's remind ourselves that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so I've actually been to Vegas a few times during the pandemic, and I would say that it is not crazy at all. Most things are closed down. You just have to be very intentional about things. You can still have fun, but you just have to make reservations for everything. So I guess that's a tip for anyone who's going to Vegas anytime soon. If you want to go to any kind of sit-down restaurant, you just have to remember to make a reservation. There really are no clubs. It's really a lounge. And so they've kind of converted all their clubs to lounges. You have to have like table service to even get in. So that's like $700 right there. And I can't see Brandon and Julia for two people, spending $700 just to be in a club atmosphere. And so let's say you're like sitting in a little couch area, like by yourselves, because everybody's social distance, like technically in this lounge, like the drinks get brought to you. So it's like you really have no excuse to like mingle. Like, what kind of partying are you expect? What are they going to do? Like, get drunk and have sex? Well, they can do that at home too. It's not all that different.
Right. And it's not like Julia can do her dancing that she wants to do or anything like that. Like, I assume from what it sounds like you're saying. But yeah, like that, and that's a good point. And so, I get that it's like lights, but but I don't know. It also just seems like, I don't know. Both of these parents have a familiar to me fear of like the city in general. Like the city will suck you in and trap you into nothing. Like I would hate to like. Vegas is one thing; they have their own things, but I would just like I can't imagine what they think about like say Baltimore. which is like my nearest city.
Right.
Like, oh no, it's death on every corner.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would be concerned about if I was Ron and Betty, like legitimately, is the gambling. Because Julia was all excited about like the slot machines in the airport. She was like, oh, we can make more money here. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're not making, I mean, people make money gambling, but not doing slot machines, they don't.
Right. Okay, let's talk about Michael and Angela. So we see Angela, who is 54, from Hazelhurst, Georgia. She's weighing herself, and she's convinced her scale is broken. She is currently living with her 6 grandkids and her daughter, Skyla. Angela tells us that after being a Meemaw, she claims she hung up her vagina. That is, until she met Michael, 32, from Lagos, Nigeria. She married him while in Nigeria since their K-1 visa was denied, and they are hoping that they can get him over on a spousal visa. Angela says she didn't have that much time after the wedding because she had to rush home because her mother was dying. It's now been 7 months since the wedding. The COVID, as she says it, has ruined everything for Angela, including her weight gain, delayed visas, and being stuck in a full house. Angela wants to have weight loss surgery, but Michael isn't supporting that decision. Angela just feels uncomfortable at this weight, and she feels like losing weight would make her feel more confident and comfortable and healthy. She thinks that the weight loss surgery is to prolong her life for her grandkids and for Michael. All the grandkids agree that she's getting fatter, and they all think she's getting fatter because Meemaw is always eating cakes, donuts, candy canes, but that's also for her breath, and ice cream. Angela wants to be a sexy bitch because there's more pressure on her to be attractive now that she has a younger man. She hopes that Michael comes around and sees this surgery for what it is. Back in Nigeria, Michael is holding a baby as the baby poops. He doesn't want to change their diaper, but his sisters change the diaper as he holds the baby. Michael gives his version of the story, which is that he met Angela on social media, and 5 months later, they started sending sexy pictures to one another. He thinks Angela is sexy, and Michael has no idea when they'll be able to live as Okimi and wife. He had a couple pronunciations of it, but one of them.
I hope you said the right one.
Yeah, well, yes, because one of them means my penis, apparently. So he doesn't know when they're going to be able to live together. He updates his aunt that Angela is going to have weight loss surgery. His aunt thinks that Angela should listen to her husband and just not do it. They think that Angela is wasting her money on her looks, and she should be saving money to try and get a child. They want Angela to be a woman that can give Michael a child. His aunt thinks he should abandon his marriage and marry a Nigerian woman. Michael thinks that it will be different once he's actually over there, and he doesn't want to push her while they still have distance. Michael says he's not a fan of divorce, but if Angela doesn't want to have any kids, he'll have no choice. Angela video calls with Michael and all the grandkids. The grandkids leave so Angela can talk to Michael about her upcoming trip to California, where that's where she's going for her weight loss surgery. Angela is worried about her aging looks. Angela says he shouldn't worry because she'll still have big boobs and she's going to work on, her big butt. Michael tells us that people have lost their lives in Nigeria getting this kind of surgery. He's also kind of concerned that she's trying to glow up to find someone else that's closer in age or better looking than him. Angela reassures him that he is her guy because it's only once in a lifetime. Oh gosh, you're going to cringe when you hear this.
Yeah.
That a penis fits in a vagina like a glove.
What's wrong with her vagina then? I'm so confused.
I don't know. Angela has been on a liquid diet and she's really struggling, and so she's very hungry. Michael suggests that she just drink water, and Angela asks him, what's that going to do? Angela tells him that she now weighs 274 pounds, and all Michael can say is, wow. Angela tells him to just be supportive, and Michael is annoyed because there's nothing he can do, and he just has to trust her. She tells him that he'll love her new body and to trust her. Angela is packing up for California for surgery. Angela does a runway walk for Skyla to show her the before. Skyla is scared and nervous for her mom's surgery. She thinks that her mom might continue to smoke and overeat, which could make things worse for her after the surgery. Angela lands in LA and she thinks she will fit in with her stunna shades and big earrings. Angela is going to have to give up smoking, and this is going to be a challenge since she says she's been smoking for 40 years, which, if you do the math, means she was 14 when she started.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Angela has never been to LA, and so she's so excited and gives a Georgia holler in her Uber. Angela tells her Uber driver that it's weird to see dogs on leashes and having their poop picked up for them because she says in Georgia, dogs just shit wherever the hell they want. Angela calls her specialist for her surgery, and she gets the rundown of all the tests she has to get done, including a pregnancy test. As Angela gives a hearty laugh at the last test, the specialist hears the huskiness in her laugh and asks her if she's quit smoking. Angela lies and says yes, even though she literally had a cigarette 15 minutes ago. Angela then asks, what happens if I did smoke? And the specialist says that it might prevent the incision from closing and she could have complications. She admits that she had solids that morning, and the specialist emphasizes that she needs to continue the liquid diet. Angela gets that she hasn't been respecting the rules, and now she's starting to realize that they could have dire consequences. All right, so have you ever lied to the doctor about anything so you didn't get in trouble?
No, but that not because it makes me look good, but because I barely ever talk to a doctor.
Oh, gosh.
Like, so I have no lies to tell. I don't know. They never ask me any questions.
Yeah, I actually just recently kind of like maybe not entirely told the truth. I think we had mentioned a while ago that I did a clinical trial. So I've actually been vaccinated since last October or November. But I'm looking at some of the countries, and some of the countries are saying, like you have to have one of the two vaccinations. So right now it'd be Pfizer or Moderna in order for you to get into their country. And so I'm nervous about like the fact that this kind of vaccination passport is starting to happen because mine is not an authorized vaccine. So I talked to the researchers doing the trial, and they said, yeah, you can get another vaccine. But when I'm filling out the consent form for, to get it, they asked, have you had another vaccine? And I'm like, I don't want to have to justify this, and I don't want them to turn me away. So I just said no, so I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, I did recently lie.
All right. I mean, okay. So the whole point of the gastric sleeve, right, is to, make it so your stomach, but you know how many people break those and like go through it and like re-expand their stomach because they don't follow the rules afterwards?
Yeah,
like
I
it's
can see
super,
that.
super common. And so like if I'm the doctor and doctors, I think are, more aware of what's up, like you said. And I don't do liquid diet. It's like, if you can't follow the rules of a liquid diet for like, the 2 weeks before the surgery, a week before the surgery, then I can't trust you to be responsible with the results of the surgery. Like, I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. Like, so it's not a good sign. And like, yeah, definitely one of those things that like, I've never smoked, and like, I'm always glad I did, because they're like random things like, well, your incisions won't heal if you're a smoker. And it's
I know,
what?
that's concerning. That is super concerning. Like, and I do think that people need to know like what the consequences are to things sometimes, because I do think that some people kind of are just like, oh, they're just saying that. But, I don't think it sunk into Angela until the specialist actually gave her a specific reason why she needed to quit smoking. And then all of a sudden she's like freaking out like, oh God, I just had a cigarette like 15 minutes ago. Am I in trouble?
Okay, well, come on. Let's both, admit this. Angela's probably an anti-masker, right? And she says, we don't need to wear that mask for anything, like whatever. Like, she wears it on the camera because I'm sure they make her, but I bet out in life, I doubt she went through the pandemic really, gung-ho about the quarantine.
Yes, I agree with like the whole quarantine thing, but I think she might have been good about the mask, because remember on the Tell-All, the last season she was on, how she was the only one wearing a mask, but we were virtual at that point.
Right, but she said she had dental work done and was just covering up her mouth.
Yeah, I don't know, though.
And it was under her nose the whole time.
Oh, gosh, yes, that's true. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't want to pretend I know too much about someone or make assumptions just because she is very, vocally pro-Trump.
Well, I mean, also, it just also vocally, I'm going to do what I want.
Yes, that's true. And she doesn't respect the rules. She's already said this is an issue.
Right. So that's all the stuff. Okay, can we also, I'm going to break this down because I'm already frustrated with this. Are we going to have to listen to her talk about her vagina and Michael's dick all season long? I feel like they're just doing it because it gets a rise out of people, right?
Yes, I feel so too. Like she's definitely hamming it up. You know, she's trying to be the funny one. It's very obvious she's trying to be the funny one.
Yes. And in her funny one specific way. Every time I say vagina, people think it's funny. So I'm just going to keep saying vagina all the time.
I think she's trying to recapture her, she got a pretty famous catchphrase after her first or second season, like, I just need an egg. I can tote it.
Tote it. I can tote it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's just trying to get another one of those gems coming out, and so she's just throwing everything at the wall, like hoping for the best.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't just them this episode. I feel like a lot of these couples really leaned hard into double entendres and like lame ass dick jokes. Like seriously, not even good ones.
Right. I am actually really concerned because the last time we kind of left off, like I was under the impression that Michael was kind of okay with the idea that maybe they would possibly need to adopt if you really wanted a kid, or that them having a biological kid, like at least with Angela, might not have been possible, right? And now he's like saying, now that he's not with her, all of a sudden he's like, well, I may have to divorce her, she can't give me a kid. It's like, does she know that? Because I think this is a problem.
It definitely, I mean, I hate to say it, but it definitely smacks of something that producers are putting in their mouths. Like, talk more about how she has to have a kid. We want to, because we want to get her at the gynecologist. That's another like big one we like to have. Like, and so, I mean, yes and no, but taking it at its word, it's almost like I can see why if they've been separated and, his aunt there is in his ear, and his aunt has always been, in the show, always been, well, no, children are nothing. That's the only thing that matters. Children are nothing. But you're right. I thought the conclusion we had come to was that she can't have children and they were going to get married anyway.
Yeah.
But they were lying to his family about it.
Right. And I think they were also trying to convince Skyla. And I know he's holding out hope, but he has to know that is not a sure thing. Not
even close to a sure thing.
Not even an inkling of a possibility at this point.
It's a struck by lightning thing, a lightning shot at best.
Yeah. Oh, poor Skyla. And then she has to live with these people, like constantly pressuring her. That sucks.
It does suck. I mean, yeah. All right. So who else sucks? Okay. How about, Kalani and Asuelu? Yeah. All right, so Kalani, who is from Washington, Utah, is house shopping. They try to play with us by having her and the real estate agent talk a lot about, like, new beginnings and clean slate to try to get us thinking that maybe she's divorced now. But her husband, Asuelu, who is 25 and from Samoa, is in the master bedroom of the house wrestling with their boys. They run us through their stories so far, which includes... weirdly enough, a lot of fighting and a lot of accidental pregnancies. Like he brought her to the country because she accidentally got pregnant. And then when things were rocky, they got married because she accidentally got pregnant again. And then last season, they just fought with each other and his family. Of course, the season when they were on HEA and they met his family, and the family just wanted money and their marriage was in really serious trouble. Back in the present, they're talking with the agent about the house and the price of building a new one since they were looking at the model. And he said it would be about $362,000. Things are a bit better financially now since Asuelu is making money as an Uber driver, but, it's still outside of their price range. They were shopping for houses because, Asuelu thinks that living in his own place will make things better for him in their relationship because right now they're living with her parents who, let's be honest, don't like Asuelu, and he doesn't particularly care for them either. Back at Mom and Dad's house, Kalani is talking about, how cordial but tense things are between
her parents in Asuelu. Soon they get a call from Kalani's sister Kalani, who she is worried is never going to be able to get along with Asuelu. She, shuffles the kids away with her mom and sets up one of the kids' iPads to talk to Kalani. She's very surprised to hear that, that Kalani is thinking of buying a house with Asuelu. Kalani says, I think this is, one of our last ditch effort shot to save the marriage if we can get a place of our own. Kalani points out that, having a whole house together will definitely make things harder if you get divorced. So Kalani wants things to work out, but is kind of already planning Kalani's divorce party. Then she also drops what is probably going to be the next plot line for the next few episodes at least, how, she's coming over for a visit and is going to stay in the house with everyone, not to piss anybody off specifically, but just to see everybody.
Right.
Right, of course. Okay, so I don't know. I guess that's the big issue going to be moving forward. Is there anything Asuelu could do to at least soften Kalani?
Not talk about her pom-poms anymore.
Oh, man.
What was that about? I don't think I've ever heard breasts referred to as pom-poms.
Boom, boom. I don't know. It's like pom-poms. I feel like it's almost lost in translation, but I don't know what he was trying to say instead.
No,
I don't know. Either way, extremely
weird.
Immature, weird. Yeah,
yes, very immature.
Are you in 7th grade? I'm confused.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things that he does is very childlike.
Very childlike.
Yeah.
He's very, very childlike, which is concerning on a few levels.
Yes. You're supposed to be an adult in this partnership, raising kids, and you act like a kid.
Yeah. And I know a lot of women have to deal with that. It's I'm raising 3 kids, but it's usually just because the guy is lazy and doesn't pull his weight and do the chores, not because he's literally
a child.
Boobies.
Pom-poms.
Yeah, pom-poms. I get pom-poms and wrestle with kids on floor. Yeah, actually like a child. But it's also there's been accidental pregnancies, so she takes this childlike person and is like, I find that sexy. At some level.
Yes. It's when you think about it like that, it's oh, that's so gross.
Multiple levels, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. I just feel bad about their situation because it just seems like Kalani is trying so hard to make this work because of the kids. And she doesn't really seem like she has an interest in really genuinely making it work out. And I think hearing Kalani's side of it, it's pretty obvious because, I mean, we only hear their conversation now, but I feel like Kalani and Kalani probably have talked about this, in private themselves. And that's why Kalani is joking about a divorce party.
Yeah. Yeah. The colors are black, by the way, because of the death of her marriage.
Yes.
No, I mean, but he's not wrong though. And I feel like buying a house is probably not the right move. As someone who literally just settled on his house after his divorce, I will tell you that's not, it does make things harder if things go wrong, but having their own place would definitely change the dynamic of everything.
Yes. And I agree that they probably do need to get out from under their parents, but it also kind of scares me a little bit because from everything that we've seen, it just seems like he is scared to death of Kalani's dad. And so in a way, yes, he's really uncomfortable, which probably makes him really agitated and, very distant. But at the same time, I feel like he's on his best behavior because he's got, big scary dad all up in his business. It does concern me what happens when he's now free to talk to Kalani the way we've seen him talk to her and to behave the way he behaves when things do go wrong.
Right. Well, I mean, also, you face it now. I mean, Kalani's mom is pretty much picking up the slack that he's supposed to be picking up.
Yes, that
right?
too. And
so she's doing that. And so his promise is, well, if I had my own place and I wasn't so agitated and felt like I was under
watch all the time, which, is disorienting and frustrating and puts you in a bad place. He's like, well, I would do better. But I was like, that's a gamble to take because he might not.
Right.
And then so she's stuck without the support that she had that she would need.
It's almost like they need just like another little vacation just to kind of see how they are, like not visiting anyone's family, you know,
that's
but also
true.
just having to take care of the kids because I mean, we haven't really seen him take care of the kids. We've seen him play with the kids, but in terms of actually helping out.
And it is something that goes on with that dynamic too, because it's her parents, and so those people who grew up with. She feels at home there. He never feels at home. Like so I totally get, like, if you're stuck there and it's somebody else's parents and you're like living in their basement or whatever, you never feel like you have a place and you have a home. And she feels that more than he does. But yeah, I kind of agree. And you wouldn't feel like that on a vacation, right? This isn't my place yet. This isn't my castle. But that's unfortunate because he definitely would have that. This is my castle, and it's like, but you have to earn like the head of household type thing. And he would not. He would just declare it.
Okay, let's move on to Mike and Natalie. So Natalie is 36 from Kyiv, Ukraine. She's sitting by herself on a pier when Michael, 35 from Sequim, Washington, walks up behind her. And this is probably the most affection we've seen from the both of them since they were in Ukraine. It was very different than last season we saw them on, which was like literally last week. Michael is back to his jovial self and talking up Natalie. They remind us how they met, which they were both named godparents to their friend's baby. And then Mike started pursuing Natalie, and they hit things off. After spending about 3 weeks total in person, Mike proposed to Natalie in Paris. Then after came their trip in the Ukraine, where Natalie then had a lot of drama with Mike, and she ended up giving him back the ring. Their visa was approved, and Mike felt like it would be a waste if they didn't use it. So Mike admits that, it was a shit 90 days. When asked by the producers to talk about what happened the day of the canceled wedding, Mike just simply refuses to talk about it. He said it is for him and him alone. He simply says he wasn't ready that day, but ultimately they weren't ready to give each other up. They're taking a trip to Seattle, which Natalie is happy about because the wood has made her wild and she's excited to get out. She then tells us she keeps hearing random screams in the woods. Mike assures her that the only person who's going to get her is him. Natalie is sitting with Mike and points out that he isn't wearing any wedding ring, and we find out he never got one. She worries that he's not committed if he can't bring himself to wear a ring. Natalie shows off the ring that she bought herself for $3 at some shop with some stones. Natalie says she wants to buy him a matching $3 ring. Mike says that he can't wear a ring at work because it's a safety issue. It could get caught on something. Mike admits that the rings aren't important and the marriage itself is what is important. Natalie thinks the ring is symbolic of how serious he is taking this marriage and will question their marriage if he refuses to wear one. Natalie has found a place for them in Seattle to shop for a wedding ring for Michael. They go to Stargazers, which Natalie calls a ring shop, but it's really just an energy crystal store. Natalie says that she believes in energies, and Michael reminds us that he believes in aliens and energies and atoms, and that we were made from space dust. The shopkeeper, Bijan, believes that there is a lot of love between Mike and Natalie. They're picking out incense, which Mike thinks will heat things up in the bedroom. Bijan asks why they've waited so long to buy a ring, and Mike says because COVID was rough. Mike doesn't think that this ring is going to help anything. They mess around, and Natalie gets on her knee to present the ring to Mike as Bijan claps. Mike thinks it's just a ring at the end of the day, a symbol, and it's just not important. Natalie brings up having a real honeymoon, and Mike brings up the idea of Oklahoma to visit his mom for Thanksgiving. Natalie is nervous about this idea because she wants to make a good impression on his mom. Mike thinks that if she is scared, she's never going to develop a real relationship with his mom. Natalie is aware his mom didn't want him to get married, so she's worried if she will have any kind of influence on Mike. All right, so here's another thing that we can see that they just are not seeing things eye to eye, and it's this ring. So if something isn't a big deal, like a ring, or you also hear about it like just getting married in general, like a wedding certificate, why do you think Mike, or just in general people, drag their feet on something that they think is so unimportant? If it's so unimportant, just do it.
Right. Well, I mean, okay, so he had at least a reasonable excuse because he probably can't wear it at work. If you wear industrial things, you can't wear it at work. But that's kind of lame, like, because especially now that they have those silicone ones.
Yeah.
They're not going to rip your finger off if it gets caught in something.
Right.
So, yeah, but it's one of those things that just like people dig their heels in about. It's not a big deal. Why are you making me do it? But it's like, and just you're in a fight really over whether it's a big deal or not.
Yeah.
Is how the fight ends up. And you're putting your feet down by saying it's not a big deal, so I'm not doing it. And the big deal is you trying to make me do stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've had so many friends that have been in a similar situation, not with a ring specifically, but this argument over, they've been together forever and, one of them really wants to get married. And the other one says, oh, well, why do we need to get married? I'm committed to you. It's pointless. It's just a piece of paper. Well, if it's just a fucking piece of paper, just do it, And it's like, to me, this is the same thing as the ring. Like, why do you need it? It's just a ring. It doesn't mean anything. I am committed to you. Well, if it's not a big deal and it doesn't mean anything, just do it. Like, to me, I get the part where people feel like they're being controlled, right? And they are being told to do something. That's the part that they, really want to dig their feet into. But it's also a simple gesture. I mean, not the wedding thing. The wedding thing's like kind of just a big production and money. But this is like a $3 ring. Like, it's a simple gesture to make your partner happy.
The people who were like, it's just a piece of paper, I could see even as a compromise, be like, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to have the big wedding thing. We'll go to the courthouse. We'll get the paper signed. We'll have a nice dinner. And then is that okay? But they're like, no. We don't need it at all. And yeah, I think part of it is them lying to themselves that it is a big deal. Because if it wasn't a big deal, you just do it, right?
Right.
If you're like, oh, could you empty the dishwasher? If you were like, I shouldn't have to empty the dishwasher. It's not a big deal that the dishwasher's not empty yet, so I'm not going to do it. Like, things that are legitimately not a big deal, right? Or another one is like taking your shoes off in the house. Like if you want to keep your shoes on, you'll keep your shoes on. If it's not a big deal, you'll just take your shoes off.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it's a good point. I think that's what it is. It's definitely people fooling themselves about it. Like, I don't know, man, but like this whole thing was, again, this is the other group that is just like, oh no, they're going to try to make sex jokes the whole time, aren't they? But,
yeah.
Nobody out here is going to take you but me. Like, that's gross, Mike. Stop.
Although it's kind of like, gross, like icky for us to have to hear it. On the other hand, it's kind of like, oh, thank you. You're actually smiling and actually looks like you guys like each other a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's I don't know. What I always gathered, I definitely thought Mike always thought she was hot, right? And I think I probably agree that their sex life was probably never on the rocks, right?
Yeah.
It was the rest of their relationship. It's like that. So that's what, but yes, we did have things where he like snuck up behind her and called her sexy and like picked her up and twirled her. And it's like, oh, actual affection from these people.
Right.
Interesting.
Instead of him looking like he just, like, his dog just died, It's like he had that, like, mopey, like, look on his face the entire season. I don't think he cracked a smile once.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So where would you go to get your cheap ring? Would you go to the magic crystal store?
I don't know. I feel like that's just encouraging Mike and his alien theories.
She said, they walked in and she said, are you on a mission or an adventure? I would have walked right back out.
I know. I was like, I wanted to, when I was like writing up the summary, I was like, do I call it the hippie store? I don't know what to call this place.
It was like, and to be fair, that shop girl seems so sweet, but like,
yes.
But yeah, just, I wouldn't even know. I would feel so awkward for the rest of the time in my store if I walked into a store and they were like, hello, are you on a mission or an adventure? I'd be like, what? I'm confused. do you know me? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I think I would just buy it on Amazon, right? Especially if you're trying to go cheap. Like, you can get a cheap ring on Amazon or Overstock. That's another random place you can get cheap jewelry.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking for the $3 one. You could go to Dollar Tree or something.
Yeah,
like, right? She was very proud of her $3 ring.
She was, and it was nice enough. I mean, and I think to Natalie's point, it's like the fact that you're just wearing any ring is a symbol, right? And to her, I think there's kind of the idea of what it looks like from the outside. And we know that she's very concerned with image and things like that. So I think for her, it's kind of an indication like, look, I'm wearing a wedding ring because I'm proud to be married. I'm okay with other people knowing that I'm married. And I think that's what the symbol is for her. And I mean, to some extent, I think also the sign that, you know, other women back off, this guy's married, you know, like, or at least, or at least give pause, this guy's married.
You say that, but apparently there's some women that doesn't stop. So.
Right. In fact, it might attract them. But, you know, at the same time, I think that she's just, you know, trying to, even if the woman doesn't care, you know, to say something about Mike.
So she knows, to know that Mike, this guy has a wife, right?
Yeah. So I think it's a lot about image, outward facing, and not just, you know, between her and Mike.
Right, but that's always been you're right. That has always been her motivation. Mm-hmm. All right, so going to otherly motivated people, we go to Libby and Andre.
Oh, goodness.
So we start with Libby, who's 30, doing a photo shoot for her 34-year-old husband, Andre, like for his, I guess, real estate business. It's not even at their house. It's at her sister's house, and they live in Tampa. Either way, he's posting behind an open house sign. Eventually, after a bunch of weirdness, we find out that Andre had got his real estate license and wants to start a business flipping houses. He's not really practiced at the salesmanship just yet. Then they kind of go to an interview, and it seems like they say he would have been okay continuing to be a stay-at-home dad. But, you know, Libby wants him to make some money. So we recap some of their previous seasons on the show. They've been on, you know, they had their 90 days where they met, you know, when she was touring around Europe. They had their 90 days, ended up getting married. He's always been butting heads with her family. And then last year, they had a kid shortly after their marriage. And of course, last year they went to Moldova and had a second wedding in his home country. Again, the common theme to basically everything that's happened is Andre butting heads with Libby's pretty hard-headed family. Specifically, the dad a little bit, but that's been getting better. But now it moves to her brothers and sister. Anyway, Andre says that last season, his and Libby's dad, his name is Chuck, their relationship has improved. But he hasn't spoken to her brother Charlie since they returned from Moldova because he drunkenly took the microphone and talked shit during their wedding reception. About, don't you come to America and take my dad's money. And anyway. But anyway, back in the present, they're all with Libby's sister, Becky, and her brother-in-law celebrating Andre's accomplishment, even though Becky wants to take credit for it. Andre says he wants to make, 7 figures doing this and is worried that, we might end up in competition with each other because Becky, like the rest of the family, works for Chuck doing, real estate and real estate adjacent things, including flipping houses. Now that Chuck has come up, Andre mentions, his plan moving forward with his new real estate license. He wants to get a loan from Chuck to start his own business. They never bring this up again, but he would be Chuck's competitor in the same industry. So, anyway, Becky is, off-put by Andre cavalierly assuming that Chuck will just give him money because, he thinks he's just going to be, just ask for like $100,000.
God.
Becky and her husband are pretty offended that Andre just sees Chuck as a bank, but Andre's like, what's the problem? Everybody's using him. He backs off and was like, oh, maybe not you, Becky, but Charlie and Jen, your brother and sister, they are definitely looking at Chuck just like a piggy bank. They all warn him that if he wants to ask, he better spend a little more time working on his relationship with Chuck and the whole family because the whole family has a stake in the business. Libby thinks that, Chuck is going to want to help him out, but the rest of the family is going to have to get on board. So next we see is Andre meeting Chuck at a restaurant, outdoor dining, to make his case for the unofficial business loan. Chuck cuts the small talk and gets straight to the point. What are we here for? Andre says that, for his family to do well, he feels like he should get to work. And Chuck says, hallelujah. Because that's their knock against him is he's lazy. But anyway, Chuck is also the guy to see if he wants to make that happen. Chuck reminds Andre that in the past he's offered him jobs to work with his company, but Andre always turns it down because he doesn't want Chuck to be his boss. Andre, seeks to clear things up. He's not looking for a job. What he wants, again, is a $100,000 loan to start his own house flipping business. Chuck refuses off the bat, laughs at him and says no. He gawks at Andre's audacity. Having a real estate license is no guarantee he can flip a house. And if we're talking business, what's in it for Chuck as the person who gave him a loan? Basically, Chuck tells him, well, you're going to have to prove that you can even run a viable business before I give you $100,000. So we circle back. Chuck is willing to let Andre come work with him, in his company to learn the ropes. And if he proves he can do it, then Chuck might help set him up at his business. Andre agrees to those terms because that's pretty much all he had to agree to. But Chuck says, he's also going to have to talk to the rest of the family about this because, again, it's ultimately his decision, but the family has a stake in the business. This part makes Andre nervous because he believes that Jen and Charlie are going to try to talk Chuck out of it. Chuck cautions Andre that if he works with Chuck, he'll have to be working with Charlie too because Charlie works in the house flipping part of his business. Andre feels like he doesn't have much of a choice because, he wouldn't be able to get a conventional loan. But, he doesn't like the situation of having to get along with Charlie one bit. Okay, so how much money would you be willing to loan Andre for his house flipping business at this point?
0. I know we kind of hate on Chuck in the past because he's been somewhat, I don't know, just either too much of an enabler in some ways or, he just kind of gives them money and you're just like, why? Why are you giving them money? Or
I mean, it was especially bad last season when he just agreed to pay for the wedding. He was like, well, I just wanted you to ask. Of course I'm going to pay for it. I was like, are you? Why? Yeah.
But I actually thought how he handled this was pretty smart. He was reasonable. I think it's an absolutely reasonable request for him to ask Andre to prove himself because the reality is Andre has done nothing didn't Chuck pay for him to go to trucking school? What happened to that, right? Chuck paid for that. So it's not like Chuck hasn't given him money. And I could absolutely see, if you're thinking about this from a business transaction, why am I going to give you money for something that you're going to abandon? I'm not just going to give you, $100,000 for you to be like, oh, I spent all this money and I didn't really know what to do with it. And, that didn't work out. And now I'm at a loss and can you front me some more money because I lost some money out of this? And then, you're like, I get that he's trying to make him prove himself. And I think what he's asking is a very fair way for him to prove it. Yeah, it sucks. I agree. It sucks because of his really bad relationship currently with Charlie and Jen. But at the same time, how else is Andre going to be able to prove himself to Chuck any other way?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because he's a son-in-law and not a son, but not that Charlie isn't. He is a pretty poster definition of a fail son, right? Oh, we tried something, that didn't work. All right, here's some more money to try something else. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, here's some more money. And the unfortunate part about those guys is eventually they end up giving them something where they end up making way more than I'll ever make in my life. And they're just and because every time they failed at anything, he was there to, all right, well, here you go again. Well, eventually I'll just give you the easiest thing I could possibly imagine and just put you in charge. I'll make you the manager of this contractor who is a pro and has been working for 50 years and doesn't need anybody to manage him. And all of a sudden, oh, you're doing great. Making $300,000 a year. Fantastic. Wow. Yeah. I mean, Charlie is also a fail son, but it's we see it through with Andre of all the stuff that he's tried to do and just failed at. And so now it's to me, could you imagine somebody I'm broke, right? Not broke, but I'm not Chuck. Right. Coming up and be like, I've never had a job in my life. I've never been able to hold down a job. Give me 6 figures worth of money. Just sight unseen. And especially because the bank won't give it to me.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I think Chuck handled it pretty well. What he's not handling well is what is going on with his haircut.
Whoo. Yeah.
It was a pretty bad COVID haircut. I felt bad for him.
That's a quarantine haircut. That's Charlie's cutting his hair and doesn't know what he's doing. They're going on there.
Right.
It just needed to be a lot shorter. Chuck is to the point where his hair is thin enough and it's bald enough that he just needs to commit to, I'm just going to buzz cut this thing all the way around.
Well, it was almost like he had he was trying to cut parts of it. And then he had long strands.
Super long.
Yeah.
Like 6 or 8 inches long. They were like he's trying to do the world's thin comb over thing. I don't know if it's like I don't know if he's trying to do a Trump bird's nest thing going on, but especially in the wind at that restaurant. Whew.
Yeah, it was a challenge. But yeah, other than that, Chuck kind of acting like a good parent should.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like
being supportive, but then without being enabling and just like giving out.
Yeah, I'm not just gonna give you out free money. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, because he would get screwed in that.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's also something that I couldn't imagine like asking like my parents for. I'd ask my parents for help, but also is like because it's like I'm also not bringing it with me to the table, not like thinking about it, but it'd be like, I have this huge track record of following through when I ask for something, when I choose to do something.
Yeah.
So if I need your help, that I'm going to follow through and do it. And he doesn't have that track record at all.
No, he definitely doesn't. So, it'll be interesting to see how this ends. And I also think it must be somewhat satisfying for Libby because she's been trying to tell him this entire time. You could just work for my dad. You could just get into the family business. I don't want to do that. I want to be a trucker, man.
Well, and this one is just like, I'm surprised they didn't bring it up. And I mentioned it before. Like, how are you going to ask somebody for a loan to get into the business that they're in?
Yeah.
I would like a loan so that I can start a company that's going to be your direct competitor. That's what I would like. Like, why would I give you that loan? It doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't. All right. So that covers the ones that were covered this week. So we didn't hear from Cheese Stick and Melissa, Jovi and Yara, and Tiffany and Ronald. So we still have a bunch of couples left.
Almost half of them. But that, you know how they're going to drag out the season. I'm getting ready for a long haul of 20 episodes or something.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So who was your student of the week?
So using a sliding scale based on the last time we saw them, I would say Mike. Because he actually seemed like like I said, we got to see him actually crack a smile and look like somebody like, oh, I could see why someone might want to be with that person for any extended period of time.
Yeah, I actually almost gave it to him, but then the whole, his reasoning why he didn't want to wear a ring just annoyed me. So I went with Kalani, and even then, Yeah, but she's trying to meet the needs of her husband, right? I don't know if that means she's making good life choices, but she's at least considering, his feelings and trying to make things better for him.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's just whether or not that's better for her is largely debatable.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best life choice, but...
Right.
All right, what about your dunce?
I went with Michael. Michael. So I went with Mike and Michael. So Michael, just because Nigerian Michael, right? Because it was, again, a twofold. We're still beating on this baby thing from a 54-year-old woman. Like, come on. Like, why are we doing that? I as soon as it brought up, I was like, oh, we're still talking about this baby thing. Oh, my God. Right? But then this only other thing he did was harp on her how she couldn't get the surgery. So it just, what both ends was like just him trying to control her body.
Sure.
And I was like, that I didn't like that. So I mean, he gave him dunce.
Okay, so my dunce was actually Angela, but not like in conflict of what you were saying. It's more so like her just not being able to follow rules, not being able to follow doctor's orders. Like she's putting herself in danger by not following the rules.
Right.
I think also just we don't need to hear the details of your penis. Well, not her penis, but like
not her penis.
In
Michael's
the couple,
penis. No.
The penis in the vagina. We don't need to hear about that.
Right. I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on that. Once in a lifetime, did it fit? And I was like, wait, what have you been doing? I think you've been doing it wrong.
This isn't like an interlocking puzzle piece. Like,
yes.
It has to be exactly the same size.
Right. Doesn't have to. There's one made for the other. Exactly.
All right. What about your life lesson?
All right. So, we talked about this a little bit, but it's basically don't base where you want to live, on how much short-term fun you had in the tourist part of town.
Oh yeah, sure.
Right? Because you mentioned Love After Lockup, but we've also seen like Colt, right?
Oh,
Lives
yeah.
in Vegas, right? We've seen people in this show that are in Vegas, and like you're right, downtown. The part of Vegas where people live and downtown Vegas are just worlds apart from each other.
Yeah. Okay, so my life lesson also geared towards Brandon more specifically. If someone really, really wants something, it's just like borderline cruel to tease them in a way that gives them some kind of hope. So like when Brandon is just
that was really bad.
Yeah, he knows she just really wants to get out of the farm. So for him to like tease her and give her some kind of hope, she's like, oh, really? No. Like, oh my God, you're the
oh my
worst.
God, it was so bad. It was just like, it's like, it was, I mean, almost like fake proposing to somebody.
Yes.
Right? It's like, what the hell is that? That's so mean. Like,
it's really
did you really want this
cruel.
candy bar? Ha! There's no candy in it. Ha! What a joke. It was just a prank, bro. Like, that's just mean.
Yeah, but except these are big life things. It's one thing to say like, oh, a candy bar, right? Because like, how long have you wanted that? Like 30 minutes? Or like 2 seconds since you saw it, but this is something like, this is in her heart of hearts desire,
It's also something the way he teased her with.
Yeah.
Oh, did you think I was like romantic and thoughtful and things? Psych. I'm not any of those things.
I know.
Right? Did you think I considered your feelings and actually made a decision and did something with you in mind? Of course I didn't. What are you ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. It was just so cruel. And then the way he was like condescending, like, okay, well, we'll just go like live in a cardboard box then. It's just like, oh, you don't have to be such an asshole about it. Jeez.
Right. Like it would have been totally, like I said, like to even throw DC or Richmond or Charlotte or like any other city where you could like reasonably be like, hey, we could actually live in this other place that is not like here, not casino land, but also not a farm.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no, that's it.
All right. Okay, so we're just getting started with this group, and on our other channel, we are still continuing with our classic season of Before the 90 Days, season 1, and we're going to be wrapping up that soon, and we're currently waiting to figure out when the Love After Lockup premiere date is going to be. We know it's June, but we don't know what date. And so that kind of determines whether or not we're going to start a new season on our classic.
Or whether we can squeeze in another classic season before that or not.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. Do we really want to put that on ourselves, especially because our AP reading is going to be so long?
I know. It's so long, and it is a very busy time of year.
Yeah,
and then
it
nothing.
is. Yeah, because I think we have AP reading from like June 1st to the 18th.
Oh, that's right, we do.
Yeah, so it's like I don't think we're gonna want to do 3 episodes during that time. So I would almost like err on the side of caution and just not cover.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will figure this out, but we'll see you all next week.
Yes. All right. Bye.
All right. Till then. Bye.